Welcome to the Brewmaster Series, where brewers from around the world share the incredible stories behind their journey, the challenges they've conquered, and the brews that define them today. Raw insights, bold creations, straight from the source. Cheers.
Tell me your name and what is your company?
Okay, no problem. I'm Michel Ordeman and founder of Jopenbier in Haarlem. Founded 30 years ago. And my position is that I'm head of church, or in English CEO. So founder and CEO, but head of church with a small wink to the location where our first brewery is set up in a church.
That was a Jopen church in Haarlem, Netherlands.
Yes, so it's 15 minutes out of Amsterdam. And Haarlem used to be an old brewing city in the Netherlands in the late Middle Ages, together with Gouda and Delft. And 30 years back, the city existed 750 years. And the city council asked their inhabitants how to celebrate this festive year. And a lot of people said you have to do something with beer, because Haarlem is an old brewing city. So that's honoring your history. But if you want to celebrate, you need beer anyhow. So why not combine those two reasons and do something with beer? And the city thought that was a very good idea. But they didn't want to do that themselves, so they said, if you will do it as a civilian initiative, then we can support. So these people came together, founded a foundation without a profit goal, and started looking into the archives in Haarlem, and found two purity laws from 1407 and 1501.
That precedes the purity laws that are popular in Germany.
True, yeah, that's true. And we chose we translated it from Old Dutch to usable Dutch, and had both recipes trial brewed at a brewing university, a small batch. And we decided to go into the festive year with a Jopenbier from 1501, so a blonde 3-grain beer, because the recipe prescribes that the malted oats needs to be the predominant grain, and then malted wheat. And the smallest part should be malted barley. Nowadays that's quite common to use oats or malted oats due to the New England IPA trend. But 30 years ago, every brewer in the Netherlands was looking at us like, oats?
How do you brew with that?
Yeah, true, because everybody forgot it as a brewing grain. Everybody was using barley or wheat, but no oats anymore. And we said, but if it was possible 500 years ago, it should be possible now. So we started actually with unmalted oats. So we took raw oats and boiled it up to start with in the process, to break it down, and then add the malted wheat and the malted barley. Afterwards, we discovered that flaked oats were available, and a little bit after that, malted oats became available also again. So nowadays it's quite easy to use the malted oats, but 30 years ago it was really...
You had a lack of enzymes at the time.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
What did you bring into brewing? Have you been a home brewer before, or how did you get started?
I've done a little homebrewing, and I've done some internships in breweries. So I was a brewer's help, if you like, in two small pub breweries. Actually, my first internship was by a bigger brewery in Belgium, and they said, well, one of your subjects to write something about is the trend of pub breweries in Germany, and can you look if that's for us interesting to do something like that in Belgium? I said, okay, but then I need to visit one. I said, well, there is one in Belgium in Leuven. So I went to Leuven with my backpack and my notebook, and it appeared that there was a Dutch brewer running the brewery there, Chris Wisse, and he answered my questions, but he also said, well, if you finish your internship and you have spare time, why don't you come and work with me? So I worked there for 2 months, and that was really working in the brewery at the kettle. So I learned a lot from Chris, and also about the different beer styles, because in the beginning it's like, okay, what do you know about beer? It was, well, more the big brands, the common brands. And he showed me that from Old Lambic to Goes, from smoked beers from Bamberg, So he showed me way more like the broadness of the whole spectrum of craft beer or of specialty beer, if you like, which I wasn't known with at that time. So he really opened my eyes for beer. And later on, when we started brewing, we had the possibility to brew at a brewery that Chris was working after that. It was a small production brewery, so where we could bottle our beer and keg our beer. So that really, Chris always helped us with the production of our beers, and he also enlightened me with knowledge about craft beer or specialty beers.
How did the Jopen Church get into that?
So we started for the festive year, so that was contract brewing, right? Because there was no use to start a brewery for 1 year. And when that year was almost at its end, I asked other people within that society, I said, okay, what are we going to do? We gave the city a present. They have their own beer back. People like it. Each time that we order a brew, it's sold out in 2 weeks. It should be a pity if that goes away after the celebration year. And all others said, well, but we're not looking for a new career. You are young. If you want to, why don't you go ahead and take this on a new road and see if you can make it into a company for the many years to come. And that's what I did. So we kept contract brewing, but in a couple of years we made a transition from society without a profit goal into a limited. So we got some shareholders aboard and invested in our own kegs, in promotion material, glassware, things like that. And we also said, like, okay, if we reach a certain point in volume, it might be interesting to see if we can open up a brewery in Haarlem to make a brewing, not just the beer, but also the brewery itself visible in the city, and then the circle is round, right? And it's complete. Well, this stage in volume was reached quite soon. So I think after 3 years, we said, okay, now it's interesting to find a location to open up a brewery. And I said, okay, if we're going to do that, then I don't want to open up a production brewery in an industrial area, but I would like to have a pub brewery, because that makes it possible for each visitor of the city to visit it and become known with the brands, right? So the pub brewery is more or less also our marketing instrument to make our brand seen to a bigger public than just the beer geeks who already know our beer. But the big public is in the city center going out.
And it should also appeal to tourists.
Yes, exactly. Well, this took a while because it was quite hard to find a suitable location in the city center. But eventually we found a vacant church. So a church that ended being used as a church in the 70s and was turned into retail space. But it was empty since halfway the 90s. And we had a discussion with the owner, who said, well, I know that this whole area is going to be redeveloped. I'm waiting on that, and till that time I won't rent it out. And in the end, the city made it, bought the church from him with the intention to tear it down and to do new development. But fortunately for us, the old owner said, well, before you go tear it down, give the guys from Jopen a call, because I know that they are still looking for a location.
So it was already called Jopen.
No, it was the official name is Veste of Jacobskerk. In the city it was called the Wine Church, because the last user was a wine merchant. And when we bought it, it took 5 years to wait for the permits. So we were not able to refurbish it, but we could do small events. So if there was like we have a comic festival with all cartoon drawers. I said, okay, why don't you come to our church's location? We'll put up a mobile bar and some heaters, and we can have a beer here and watch all the cartoons being made. So things like that draw attention from the local newspaper. And if they wrote about it, they said, oh, there's a nice event in the Jopen Church. So they called it actually Jopen Church. So when we finally were opening up after 5 years waiting for the permits, we said, okay, what shall we name it? I said, well, the newspaper and the public already are calling it the Jopen Church, so let's use that. So some people think it was named Jopen Church already. No, it was Jopenbier, And then 15 years later, Jopenbier came. But that was really our breakthrough, because since that moment, we were on the map, people could visit us. The location was voted as most beautiful bar in the Netherlands in the first year it was open. So it also gave a lot of attention in magazines for gastronomy. So a lot of our possible buyers were reading about this, that it was a beautiful location. And then our salesman came in like, do you know Jopenbier? Yeah, I know the Open Church, right? That's the location. So the location really helped us to put our brand on the map. So in that way, that idea really worked. And that took 3 years, and then we were running out of capacity. And then we had the luck that our neighbor in the industrial area where we had a small warehouse, they left. So we could build a complete new hall for a second brew house, new bottling lines, kegging lines. So that's now our second location, so more production location. But the Open Church is still, for the public, the number one location.
And you added more and more beers to your portfolio?
Yeah.
Because first it was that one Jubilee beer.
Yep.
And then you added IPAs and all the beers that we think made the craft beer scene.
But it's true. Yeah, so the first 15 years, it was the Jopenbier from 1501. That's what we started with. When we continued, we said, okay, we have to make sure that everybody knows that we're continuing and that we're not stopping. So we introduced the older recipe also, which is a Gruut ale, a herbal beer. And after that, we said, okay, if we're going to add new products to our portfolio, our current beers are so different because of that use of oats as predominant grain. Let's make sure that if we do a new beer, it should always be different than what's already there. So don't copy the status quo, try to be original. And we do that with the use of different grains, but also different techniques, or nowadays the spectrum is bigger, like different hops, things like that. But we still do a lot of, we have only a few beers that are only with barley malt. And the majority is a mix of different grains. Could be oats, could be wheat, could be rye, could be spelt, emmer, einkorn. So we use a big spectrum of different grains because we think it adds something to the flavor, and it also makes you stand out of the crowd.
What's your newest baby? I mean, you release a new beer from time to time.
Yeah.
Which is your newest and probably obviously newest baby is the most favorite one?
You should not forget your old darlings, right? So the Jopenbier that we started with, we still brew. It's not our biggest beer anymore. IPA took over. Let's be honest about that. Also in the Netherlands, IPA is big. So we are our number one beer is an IPA. I would say it's a little East Coast. It's a little softer than the West Coast, but it's brewed from day one, also with oats, a clear IPA but with oats to make it softer. Second one is a hazy IPA, third one is a non-alcoholic IPA, so that's our top three in the portfolio. But the Jopenbier will always be there, right? So we will never stop brewing that. Newest babies now, I think the last beer that we brewed was a cold IPA. So IPA with rice flakes, brewed with a bottom fermentation yeast and hopped with some new hops. It's a collaboration with a London brewery called Goodness, and it's always fun to do collabs. So this is our anniversary year, 30 years of existence. So each month we brew a monthly special, small batch, and that's for this year, each month a collaboration. So we're brewing with breweries from all over Europe, from Sweden, from Germany, from Spain, from France, from Italy. They come from all over, and I think that's also part of the craft beer culture. That craft brewers are befriended with each other. I like to do collabs. I like to visit each other breweries and discuss about, okay, what are your ideas about beer? What are your ideas about brewing, about the process? And it's very, very unique that you have that interaction between competitors because you don't see each other as competitors. We're friends amongst each other.
Is there a beer that you taste as wow, I wish I had brewed that? I mean, you travel a lot, and then you come to breweries and wow, I should have had that idea. Is there a beer you remember? Wow, that's so special.
Well, I think if I'm looking at classics, right, and I think beers like authentic Geus from Belgium, they're so special, right? There's nothing in the world which you can compare with that. On the other hand, being in the region of Bamberg, the smoked beers, I really was the first sip. I thought that somebody used my glass as an ashtray, but after that sip, it was like, but this is intriguing. It's interesting. And now I try to be in Bamberg each year to buy a few cases, right? Like a pilgrimage. So those beer styles are so unique and so I would say icons in the beer world, and that's great. But it can also be a very nice hoppy pilsner, and can also be a really clean, crisp, hoppy West Coast IPA. Right? It's like there's still so many styles that you can brew and improve on. That it's. I think that's always also the challenge. If you make a new beer, how can you make something that's an improvement on something that somebody already has tried? You should always try to make things better.
Thinking of trying to get things better, can you think of something where you say, well, that was a really bad decision to brew that?
Yeah.
Was there a beer that you did not like when you made it?
Yeah, we do, one of the collaborations we did was with Lambrate, an Italian craft brewer, and we decided to make a smoked IPA. Well, I can tell you that doesn't work. That's like, because it's either the hops that you try taste on forehand or smoke, but it can't be both. So that was a bad decision. It's like, okay, it's a drinkable beer, but actually the two things that you want to achieve, like you want to have that smokiness and you want to have that hoppiness, that didn't work. So that was.
And people still bought it and tried it, or
yeah,
did
but
you
it's
have to dump it?
No, people tried it, and because the beer wasn't bad, but it just the ideas behind it that didn't come over in the beer. And so for us as brewers, that's something like, damn, that didn't work. That's a pity. Right? It's like, was it a horrible beer? No. Did we have to throw it away? No. Will I brew it again? Never. No.
And think of what a homebrewer could do or should avoid. Is there anything that you would say, well, as a homebrewer, you should do this or avoid that?
Yeah, I think with the IPA craze at this moment, or not at this moment, the IPA has landed 10-15 years ago and is now, especially I think amongst homebrewers and craft lovers, a big style. If you do an IPA yourself at home, try to keep it as a balanced beer that is drinkable, because it's not hard to make a very hoppy beer, like a very bitter beer, but it should be rounded, it should be pleasant, it should be inviting to take the next sip, and not hard and astringently dry bitter, because that's if you have that's over hopped, and nobody wants to drink something which is astringent and not pleasant. People like to drink something that's pleasant and can still be very hoppy. It should be very hoppy, but it should be pleasant.
Well, cheers to that.
Very good. Thanks for inviting us.